Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Eddie Marcus here again, spokesman and advocate of basic human rights for all people. You know, we have all kinds of conversations that's taking place nowadays. Nothing new. We've always had it. It's just that we have access to those conversations. It has been so increased and it's overwhelming that we have a continuation of this and that of what is happening in society. It's not that much to be praiseworthy. Little is, but not that much. And so we kind of get fed up with it. And when it comes down to things that has to do with individual nations, they all got their own thing going on, especially here in America. And in America, they want to associate one of America's primary issues that they've used to state their importance is Christianity. And their advocacy nowadays is that America is under the influence of the Antichrist. And they're saying this because the head leader that's been chosen and accepted by the people as being their spokesman, as their representative on an international level as well as a national level, is a crook, is a criminal. He's a racist and a bigot, a liar, a hater. And so if you know that this is representative of an individual, this which you have held up as being evil, this which you have been holding up as anti God, and you have a representative, a spokesman, an individual that you can tag with this, and you put that individual in office, it's nothing else to assume but that you are dealing with an antichrist. And so this is what is being fed to America and American citizens for many purposes, I'm sure. But the idea of it is that white people are the ones that's behind this, and that they're doing it because they are afraid of that which they accepted of the lie they call the division, and allow them to play the part in which they have played. They played a part in racism and all those kinds of things. When I say played a part, I'm talking about they've been beneficial to the victims, uh, the conduct of the victims. Victims have been beat down, robbed, and slaughtered and murdered. Whatever labor that they were contributing, others benefited from it. So on. You know how the story goes. And so they are kind of fearful. And in order to get the protection of that which represents evil, they are willing to go to any level. They're willing to the selling of their souls just for protection. And this is what getting someone as that they have chosen to lead them does. It messes with their economy. It, it causes people to be sent back home, perhaps who were benefiting the economy. That was a successful measure in increase as the economy goes. Not only that, it had a role. It plays a role in the freedom of people. It plays a role in the prosperity and the peace and the joy. Well, you lose all of that when you are willing to deal with someone who is willing to fire you from your job, who are willing to cut your benefits, who are willing to punish you, who are willing to persecute you just because you act like you don't like them and things like this. But you're still willing to sacrifice even more. You're willing to sacrifice food, clothing, and shelter because you lose what you had before you went this low. And because every step lower you go, you're being robbed. You are being robbed, and you're being robbed because you're trying to protect yourself from the evils that you have committed against your brothers and your sisters, evils that you have committed really, truly against the world. It represents a defeated people, it represents a defeated nation, and it represents a defeated God. Now, when you listen to me bring you a message like that, I don't want to leave you confused and negative like this. So I kind of want to lift you up a little bit by giving you some more information that's relative, like Adam and Eve. Adam and Eve was created, man and a woman, who represents the vessel whereby the introduction of life by humans came into the world. And God raised them. You've heard scripture said that when they were only two people, Adam and Eve, walking around talking to themselves and using their imagination, which could only be representative of something that's going on that they did not understand. So it must be a God that they are dealing with. They are seeing that they have no limitations about anything specific on the earth that they encounter, that they could not do, that they want to do, or forced to do what they did not want to do. In other words, they were bosses. However, there was something that allowed them to recognize that there was a restriction. Out of all the things that they could do, there was a restriction. I see that restriction as being not listening to another, except that which you are being listening to that's leading you, that's guiding you, that cares for you. And other voices just ignore. Well, apparently, by these two humans having the same rights, the same access, they created a problem. So rather than continuing to live as that conversation that had led them thus far, the voice, you might say, of that invisible power, that what we call God, they decided to listen to an expression of choice. And through that expression of choice, excuse me, wow, excuse me, through that expression of choice, it brought about confusion. And that confusion was represented through the raising of their first children, Cain and Abel. You can tell that same thing that God was trying to work out with Adam and Eve, which had failed. Now Adam and Eve dealing with Cain and Abel, which now we'll see has failed as well, because it gives Cain the authority in his own selfishness to say that he can kill Abel. And right there, ladies and gentlemen, it gives you an understanding of what happens, what in our world today. It is the same thing that happened in America. It's the same thing that happened in Russia, Italy, Germany, and all over the earth. These are the same kinds of things that happen. Somebody trying to be in charge, somebody trying to be boss, and working through disagreements, not coming together, not working it out so everybody's satisfied, but rather trying to prove and have their way, which when you got your way and it leads others out, that's no way that's continually exist. And so this is why you have all these various things happening and people willing to sell their souls. But at the same time, you don't have to. Let's think about if Adam and Eve were raised by God and they had choice, and then they still fail. And then you have Cain and Abel taught by their parents, and they too fail. And you have the expression that parents raise their children and they end up doing just as they are doing today. And that represents a failure as well. But there's another way of looking at it. This is a way that I just explained that tells you and shows you exactly how it was done. Maybe not every detail the same way, but the end outcome is based upon these type of activities taking place, and this being the result that we just mentioned. But the ideal is for God creating Adam and Eve, and and this is an ideal. When I speak of this as an ideal, the only reason that I'm speaking of it to you is because it is the ideal for all of you, for every what we might call race today, or what we might put together and say the human race. This is the ideal for you, and as well as the human race. This is to listen to God, to observe God, and let God be your instructor, your teacher. And the outcome of following that kind of step would produce success. And when you have a Cain and an Abel that's taught by Adam and Eve, who were taught by God, these would be raised as a success. And when you have parents raising children, doing for them the same thing that God did for Adam and Eve or their parents who raised their children to be now parents of all children, do so with a success. See, what the parents are doing by following for what has been handed down to them, and what is handed down to them is proper, they are teaching their children, all parents are teaching their children how to care for others. Because all of these children, everybody that come on the earth is cared by someone else who didn't have to do it. But for whatever the reason might be, you might be the parent, you might be somebody that just cares. But you're doing something for somebody else. Especially when you're a child, it's all, everything, even your breathing, the ability and all that. Well, that goes back to that ultimate power. But that other stuff is the power of we, the people. And now here you are, taking care of business, learning how to love, learning and understanding why all people must eat, learning why all people must have clothing, learning why all people must have shelter, learning why all people must be educated. You're learning all of this as you're growing up, learning why all people must have health care, learning why all people who benefit from the society must participate and contribute in the process of those resources that they have been utilizing while they are here and are continuously required by all people through all times. They are learning all of this while they're growing up. This is what they're learning while they're going through their parents. This is what they're learning when they're going through school. This is what they're learning while they're benefiting and utilizing the healthcare system and other systems that have been designed to meet certain needs that have been identified. And see, ladies and gentlemen, this, my friends, creates a different type of society. This is a society, a society of success. This is not a failed society. This is not a failed God. This is a successful God. And these are the choices that were put before the people in the beginning of time. And this is the same choice that put before the people today. Now, what my point that I'm trying to make to you is today is that most people have not recognized how the Bible has been used, abused to satisfy the concerns of people who are in power, people who have been stepped down through power, through time. How this instrument, this vital tool called a God, the word of the power that you cannot see, that's supposed to have been handed down to help and to guide you in this life, have been manipulated and altered to bring out a finished product that they themselves are seeking. And that's why you can have people in this world today, and let's just stick to America. I don't want to take you outside someplace you haven't been. And we have this understanding about a church, which is supposed to represent God. And we have the representation of any and everything but God. And we've been lied to and allowed to believe that what we have been seeing as a representation of God is truly a representation of God. And it is just as fake as anything can possibly be. It is not a representation of God. It is a representation of what the powers that be, evil, the powers that be, a failed God, permits you to do as an exercise of your faith in God. And you are permitted to do this because it does nothing to interrupt, to misconstruct, to tear down anything that evil is in the process of doing and have always been in the process of doing. And they've made sure that as long as you follow whatever you are following today, it would do nothing to change anything against them and better for you. Now, see, here's the thing about the Christianity that trick people. See, they got you thinking that if you do those little things that they permit you to do, and you claim Christianity, whether it's a doesn't matter, whether it's under Catholicism, uh, whether it's under being a Baptist, a Methodist, whatever the stuff Luther was talking about. It's all connected. It's all tied together, and it does. It's all tied together, just like Republican and Democratic systems of government. They allow all the pain and suffering that's been going on all the time. Each one of them talk about it as if the other one is the perpetrator of it. But if you give them the authority, you give them the upper hand, they gonna make things better. But your whole entire life, things have been going over and over and over again. And that's the same way it has been in the religious cycle. That's the same way it has been when it comes down to what we call Christianity, the life. You see, the truth of the matter is that you have not been told is this. We, as we discussed earlier, have walked down from the beginning of life failing in everything that goes on. We've been failing. All we had a measure of truth, enough to keep us breathing. But for the most part, the societies of everything have been failing, regardless of how much they allowed you to think that you had a connection with God. It was all failing. And the truth of the matter is, and the evidence of the matter is, that where it is not failing, it is not going along. There's a difference. There's something that does not allow you to move in the direction of that which does not represent you. So if you are a Christian, that means that you learn the truth. That means that you have accepted the truth. And that means you have the evidence because you are walking according to the truth. And as I just described these failed societies and the society that work, the successful society, they are going in two different directions. One is robbing the people, and the other one is bringing life to the people, showing the people where life is and how to expose it and accept it and receive it. The joy of life, the satisfaction and the fulfillment of life, not taking it from you for the benefit of others. And so when you have these type of situations, it is there for a particular reason to show you a successful society. And a Christian will walk according to that. What that basically means is this. As long as a true Christian is within any dark place, the light will shine always bright. And as long as the light is shining bright, it will do that which is necessary to ignite other lights to shine bright. That's what it does. And since ultimately this will, like the sun, give everything the kind of energy that it needs, give all the people the kind of energy that it needs to see and to make changes in their lives and eradicate that which is not life, then it becomes necessary for that which is not life to make sure that it preserves itself by taking and making an end to that bright light. So what does that mean? That means that if you're a Christian, you're going to live in a situation where others will begin to change. Not because of anything special of you, except what you reflect in allowing the spirit of love and righteousness in God to live through what you do. That's what is automatically happening. And the influence, that's the spirit of what you represent having its effect on the people. But those who does not want that to happen is going to do everything they possibly can to stop it. And that means killing you. That means killing you. So if you sum that up, what does it say? It's saying that all of us, regardless of how we came here to be here, to do all the things we do, we're all in the process of operating in evil. Even when we think we're doing good, God loving, we're still benefiting evil. But when the necessary apparatus take place that creates change for you, the individual, the evidence will be that you resist what you've been following every day. It doesn't mean that the things of the world or bad. Like, well, and let me say it to you this way: everything that's on earth is a gift from God. And just like you came here and you have choice, operate this way or that way, everything, every gift that came from God can be used for this way or that way, good or bad. It depends upon the people that's using it. So all of the things that exist on the earth from God are good or can be good, or you got control of what it's to be. So you're not running from that. You're running from the world that says if you want these things, you're gonna have to be evil. If you want these things, you're gonna have to bend your knee to man. You're gonna have to bend your knee to the system. And when you won't do that, when you refuse to do that, and they see the effect that you're having on their business, they will take you out. That is the continued evidence that you are born again, born again. And what does that mean? That means that what God has prepared for you on this earth, what God has done and demonstrated for you on this earth, gives you evidence and confidence that you don't have to worry about what happens after you die on this plane. It's great. Why? Because that's what God does. Greatness. So when you hear people start talking about Christian, being a Christian on this earth, it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything but people playing games, people playing church. It's no different than just saying you're a Christian. There's no different than any church saying that they're a Christian church and a church over there talking about prosperity. Now, everybody's a prosperity church over there trying to get your money. Well, churches that is not a prosperity church, I used to think a little small church was cool. It's just another little churches perpetuating some old false information that the systems of the world from beginning to now have allowed and permitting you, the people, to use and receive. But the truth, you can bet your last money they're covering up as much as they possibly can. Everybody's going through all of these changes since Adam and Eve, all the time. And it could have been reversed. We could have all this time been acting and receiving as though we're living in heaven. And we've actually been living in hell. Ain't that something?